Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Roundup. I am your host, David Fox. With me is, as always, the wonderful and amazing UberHansen, and we are here steeped in excitement because the team somehow managed to not only win the AFC East, but are the 2 seed in the American Football Conference, which is, I believe I saw an ESPN graphic earlier. After the Eagles' loss in overtime, they had a less than 1% chance to be the 2 seed.
0.1%. 0.1. Yeah.
1% chance to be the 2 seed. 1/10 of a percent. 1%. 1/10 of 1% chance to be the 2 seed. And we are living in that reality. This is like, I'm still flabbergasted by this entire season right now. It's just truly phenomenal. I am on cloud 9, relatively speaking. I still have to go to work, so yeah, there's that. But still, I mean, just a crazy game to finish a crazy regular season. I don't really have much more to say other than I'm dumbfounded and amazed and happy all at the same time. Uber, how are you?
Yeah, I mean, ecstatic. I going into that game, thank God the Jaguars lost because I would have been absolutely terrified, even though I was fairly confident the Bills would beat the Dolphins. But going in, knowing we had the playoff spot, and then the way the Bills won in just like a wacky game that somehow perfectly exemplifies the entire season into one 60-minute slot, like, yeah, 4 straight division titles. Also, you could, if you talk to 10, 15-year-old me and said, there's going to be a time when the Bills win 4 straight division titles, I would have said, there's no way in hell unless there's some weird, crazy apocalypse where no teams exist except for the Bills. But lo and behold, that's where we are. That's the reality we're in. 4-time defending AFC East champs and now get to go in the playoffs as the 2 seed with only one way that we can basically have to play an away game, and that would be in a hypothetical AFC championship game against the Ravens.
Which, if they make the AFC championship game after the way that this season has gone, then I will consider this season a success at this point.
Hell yeah.
I mean, just absolutely insane. I again, dumbfounded and amazed that we're in this reality right now. Like in, what was it? Infinity War, right? Are you a Marvel person at all? Were you a Marvel person?
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay. When Doctor Strange, right? Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
It is Doctor Strange, yeah. It's been so long since I've tried to be into Marvel. I've completely forgotten everything. But I do remember like the thing where he's like, there's one reality, there's one timeline, there's one thread, whatever. And with that's this thread. The Bills being the 2 seed is the most like improbable outcome from how this 2023 season went. It's just one of the most ridiculous things I can think of happening in a long time. And part of it involved the collapse of, I mean, really a couple different teams, right?
Yeah.
Because it took the Dolphins just like teetering down the stretch. And some of that is injury. I don't want to like pretend that the Dolphins are like a bad team, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're not a bad team. Like they've actually, in fact, I would say they've made their entire win record based on beating bad teams, right? Like that's their thing. That's what they do. They beat bad teams, and their good teams are, it's like, all right, they might have a chance, but you get swept by the Bills, you get beat by, I mean, just almost any team with a winning record, right? Like that. It's just there was another stat that I saw last night in my tweet storm of celebrations, and we'll get to your receipt checking from last night as well. But I mean, there was I think, and I'm gonna look forward to confirm, but I'm pretty sure that the Dolphins had one of the worst. Here it is. Okay, this is from Shield Kapadia. Dolphins end the regular season 1-5 with a minus 91 point differential against playoff teams. Only the Giants and Commanders had a worse point differential against playoff teams. That's absurd.
Yes, bad. I mean, that's
going into the playoffs with something like that, where they're right there with the Giants and Commanders. The Commanders just fired their head coach, and rightfully so. The Giants had, like, Wink Martindale's like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Screw you guys. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is happening? Oh my!
Yeah, I do agree with, like, the one thing I do want to, like, keep going back to, the Dolphins aren't a bad football team. I think they are a good football team. They're just not a great football team. That's
Right.
the differentiation. And great football teams can beat possible playoff teams, can beat good football teams.
Yep.
The teams can't beat good football. Like, okay, cool, you beat the Cowboys in Miami. That doesn't mean anything to me. You got blown out by the Ravens. You got blown out by the Bills. You also lost 2 close games, one to the Chiefs and one to the Bills. Like, they're just not a good football team. Could they go on a run still? Yeah, when you have Tyreek Hill, anything's possible. But they're just not a great football team, and I don't know how they fix it with all their cap issues moving forward.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting team from that perspective, where if we assume, right, that they're probably gonna lose to the Chiefs, I think that's a kind of that is low-key a very interesting game based on where those two teams are right now, especially if you get Mostert and Waddle back. I think that's a they could pull that out, but I'm not really expecting it either. But if let's assume they lose in the first round to the Chiefs, like, it's gonna be a very long offseason with a lot of decisions for them ahead.
Yeah.
Because you gotta, first of all, I know you talked about it last week about, like, maybe you don't keep Mike McDaniel, or maybe they consider that, right? And I don't think they're quite at that point. I don't think they would actually fire him, but this is also a team that got rid of Brian Flores after back-to-back 10-6 seasons. So who knows? And so you make that, you try and figure that out. You have to make a decision about Tua one way or another, because Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, both from the same class, and both got paid this past offseason, and they've done more than Tua has. I mean, like, relatively speaking, right? Like, Justin Herbert has the same level of playoff success, essentially. But it's just like, I think most people would also take Justin Herbert over Tua Tagovailoa as well, just in general. So they've got a long offseason, but I don't want to spend this show talking about the Dolphins, because the Bills are in the playoffs and they're the 2 seed and they're AFC East champions again. And we're going to talk about all of the great things that come from that. We're also going to look at some comments right now, because there's a lot of you. Thank you for joining. We're very happy to have all of you. RJ, I honestly don't even know how we got here. Honestly, yeah. Just the tip of canoe. What it do? Still love that name. Still my favorite name on here. Rod Mead. Yeah, baby. Much love from Australia. Oh, look at that. Little international love here on the Roundup from down under. Love it. Roy Collins. It was nice to see the wide receivers actually get involved in this game. Hey, good Stephon Diggs game. Good Khalil Shakir game, if not great Khalil Shakir game. And Dalton Kincaid. Also, like, really great game. It helps when, a 36-year-old Melvin Ingram is covering you on one of those plays, but still. Jordan Poyer's driver, this game was the 2023 season replayed in one game. That might be, that's pretty up. That's pretty accurate. I'm not gonna lie. That's right on there. Roy Collins also says Dolphins fans and podcasters are really hating on Tua. That's what happens sometimes. When you're limited as a quarterback and you're dependent on getting all the answers to the test beforehand. Sometimes this is what happens. So let's see. In the divisional round, this is Carl Toman. In the divisional round, I expect to see the Browns in Baltimore and the Chiefs in Buffalo. How awesome is it that we should play Mahomes again, but this time in our house? I've said this for a while. I think I said this last year down the stretch. when the 1 seed was on the line for the Bills in 2022 was that, could they go into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs? Of course they could. Like, they've done it before, not necessarily in the playoffs, but they've done it before. They can do it. But I'm so tired of seeing the the AFC Championship in Kansas City. 5 straight years it's been in Kansas City. 2018, 19, 20, 1, and 2. 5 straight years in Kansas City. I'm tired of seeing it. And whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Buffalo or whoever, but I do not want to see Kansas City hosting a 6th straight AFC Championship game. I don't want to see it. Not even a little bit. I'm over it. So I would hope that the Chiefs do come to Buffalo, because I think that's another winnable game for the Bills, which would get them to the AFC Championship, which is astounding to think about, if we're being honest. And if in this particular scenario, right, Browns in Baltimore getting a week off and being the team that they are, that's a tough matchup. But Cleveland is like that type of team right now where things like they could have that game in Baltimore and beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Like, it's possible. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen if that's the case, but it's possible. It's within the realm of possibilities in my mind. Nathan Elliott says, any news on injuries yet? There wasn't any news. Part of that is because they got back so late last night. So I think there will be updates probably closer to Wednesday when they have practice. So keep an eye out for that. There's some speculation online from the usual Twitter doctors. If you want to look at what they have to say about some injuries, go for it. But there's not much we can really say about anything officially right now. Connor, go Bills from Ireland. Look at this. We are an international. We're a regular Epcot Center here at the Cover One Roundup. We have quite the eclectic group of fans. Thank you. Many late nights, but worth it. I imagine so. Franzo Futini? Something Italian. As someone who lives, I have no idea if you're Italian or not. I'm sorry. As someone who lives in Kansas City, it's going to be 0 degrees out, not including wind chill. Miami isn't built for the cold, and injuries don't do well in the cold. That's why I'm happy the Bills won. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, getting the 2 seed was important. I didn't want to go back into Miami again when Mostert and Xavier Howard and Jalen Waddle might all be healthy for that game. I don't want to do that. Like, let someone else have to deal with that. That's what I cared about. So I'm very, very happy with how everything ended up playing out. So why don't we just just to kind of recap for those who are unaware of what the playoffs and matchups are. The Ravens are the 1 seed. They have the bye in the AFC. The Bills are going to be at home against the Steelers, who are the 7th seed. The Chiefs will be hosting the Dolphins. They are the 3 and the 6 seeds, respectively. And the Texans, who won the AFC South, thanks to the Jaguars' epic collapse. By the way, the Jaguars, I 2 minutes ago just fired their defensive coordinator, Mike Caldwell. So there's that. The Texans are going to be hosting the aforementioned Cleveland Browns. They are the 4 and 5 seeds, respectively. In the NFC, you've got the Niners at 1. Cowboys are the 2nd seed, hosting the 7 Packers seed, or the 7th seed Packers. Lions at 3 are hosting the Rams at 6. The Bucks at 4 are hosting the Eagles at 5. Connor, is TJ Watt ruled out officially? I think unofficially.
Yep.
Nothing has been official yet, but the reporting that it's a grade 2 MCL sprain means most likely, I think the report was something along the lines of like, they would need to win a couple of games in order for him to come back. So
yeah, for any chance of him and even then that's a question mark. So if we see him on the field on Sunday, that would be borderline miracle, and he wouldn't be nearly as effective as he typically is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're desperate enough to be throwing out TJ Watt with an MCL sprain, honestly, go for it. I don't know what. As somebody who had a grade 1 MCL sprain playing high school football, let me tell you something. Not fun. That particular limp was not fun to have for a couple of weeks there. So a grade 2 sprain is not nice, and I imagine he'll be doing a lot of PT and whatnot to try and get back from that. But that's not going to happen this week. I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah.
Let's see. RJ, I hope our 2024 DC are Ron Rivera and Eric Bieniemy respectively. Respectfully, I totally disagree with all of that. Thank you, though. Roy Collins, Black Monday wasn't as active as I thought it would be. So far, not so much. Technically, Arthur Smith was fired on Black Monday because it was 12:02 a.m. when he got fired by the Falcons. Yeah, that's unsurprising, especially given the way that final game against the Saints went. That's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very difficult for the Falcons to come back from that. But it also means that Dennis Allen looks safe, which is weird because he's not good. I mean, if you enjoy 6 and 7 win seasons, cool. I guess keep Dennis Allen. But, if you actually want to win a game, you're going to have to start by flushing your salary cap at some point. But they're never going to do that. So can't wait for 2026 when they go into an offseason $300 or $300 million over the cap. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Some coordinators did get fired. We just talked about Mike Caldwell, obviously.
Wink stepping down.
Wink left the Giants a couple hours after Brian Daboll said he'd like to have him back, which is interesting to say the least. They also fired former Buffalo Bills offensive line coach Bobby Johnson as well, which again is interesting. And that was a couple days after there was a report that they are going to try and roll with Daniel Jones in 2024, which again, interesting. So we'll see how that all goes for them.
Yeah, and I just saw that, or earlier today, I saw Joe Marino retweeted his thread going back to that Giants game when Brian Daboll and Sean McDermott met for the most lackadaisical handshake. And at the time, the presumption was, oh, geez, they hate each other. And people were like, it's all Sean's fault. That's the reason they hate each other. Now, from what we're learning about the situation with the Giants, my opinion is kind of shifted where it's I think Brian Daboll might be a pain in the to deal with.
I say this as somebody who has met Brian Daboll. We were able to interact with Daboll during the Senior Bowl last year. He's a very nice guy, very personable guy. I kind of get the sense that he might be a bit Brandon Staley-like in that he kind of has his favorites, where he's got guys that he's friendly with and guys that he's a little tougher with, and that might rub some people the wrong way. And it is what it is. He's certainly not the only coach that's kind of like that. I only mentioned that in relation to Brandon Staley because of an article that was written by Daniel Popper, who writes for The Athletic for the Chargers. After Staley got fired, he wrote a very long article about what came to this point, what led to this whole disastrous season for the Chargers. And that was definitely part of it, where guys like Khalil Mack were very effusive in their praise for Brandon Staley. Quentin Johnston, who was their first round pick this year, went out of his way to say that Brandon Staley was very good for him this year and has been a very positive voice for him. And there's other players who didn't necessarily feel that way. So it is what it is. So This is from Steve Noble. Any chance Dable hires Frazier to be his defensive coordinator? I've been talking to a friend of mine who is a Giants fan. He suggested that, and I said that would probably be a good hire if your pass rush is actually good. And theirs is not, right? Like Dexter Lawrence is a great player, but you need more than just a big nose tackle who is actually good at rushing the passer to do something here. And Kayvon Thibodeau has been a good player, but not like a great player. So we'll see what happens with the Giants.
But, and I think I saw it was Nate Tice or someone like that kind of went through and rewatched all of Kayvon Thibodeau's sacks and was like, really only one of them did he earn himself. The other ones were kind of cleanup duty. So those stats are like, there's a little bit of a lie there because I think he finished with close to double digits or double digits.
Like 9.5 or something like that.
So yeah, you're spot on though. Like that was an issue we had in Buffalo for years, right? Like we could pressure the quarterback, but we couldn't get to them, and that kind of folds Leslie Frazier's defense. So he might be a good hire in that he increases their floor from a defensive perspective, but at the same time, I don't know what the Giants are trying to do right now either, especially with $40 million tied up in Daniel Jones.
I'm not sure the Giants know what they're doing right now either. So but that is what it is. So as much as I probably could do like an entire 2-hour show about the 2024 coaching cycle and all the stuff that goes with that, we're not going to do that because we have something much more interesting and fun to talk about. Folks, the Bills won the AFC East again for a 4th straight year against the Miami Dolphins. It's just crazy. All right, Josh Allen. When I just left
you weren't happy with him yesterday.
No, I was not. And here's the thing. So I write my recap article, right? And what I start writing my recaps during the game so that I'm not up until like 3 a.m. finishing this, right? Because it's already late during these late games. I don't want to stay up any longer than I have to. But I start writing them around the 3rd quarter, maybe the 4th quarter, right? Like that's usually a point where I have an idea of what this game is, what the game is like, what needs to be talked about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my format, for those who are unfamiliar, which why would you be unfamiliar? Go read my recap. But I do Inspire, I do Inquire, I do Require, I do Irk. Inspire is who gave the most inspired performance. Inquire is what left us with more questions. Require is a player or position or coach or whoever that requires a better performance. And Irk is the most irksome performance. So at that point, I had Josh Allen as my Irk. And then by the time the game ended, I still had Josh Allen as my Irk. Because like I didn't really know what else to say, right? Like the defense played out of their minds.
Yeah.
Defense was amazing all night long. They were phenomenal. Normally, special teams is in the Require or Irk section. And then they scored on a 96-yard franchise record punt return, which is just about the last thing I could have possibly foreseen happening in this game. So I couldn't put them in there. And Josh Allen had turned the ball over twice at that point and also failed to score on the goal-to-go situation at the end of the half. So I was like, yeah, that is my most irksome performance. And to a point, I still stand by that. But I'm also willing to say that, like, this is just the Josh Allen experience. And we can sit here and say, yes, he should do this. Yes, he should do that. He needs to take this thing here. He needs to do that, blah, blah, blah. And we can complain about interceptions here and all that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, the Bills are not in this position without Josh Allen. They're just not. Like, there's just not many quarterbacks that are built like him. There's not many quarterbacks that could do the things that he does. And that's why he's here. It's why they're in the playoffs. It's why they have a 4th straight AFC East championship. So he was 30 of 38 for 359 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 total turnovers, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble on a great Christian Wilkins play. And we'll talk about Christian Wilkins later. 67 rushing yards. So for most, and this is like the dumbest thing, I think I saw Ben Solak tweet this during the game, which was, if you just take out those turnovers, this is like one of the best games Allen has played all year. Like all year. 30 of 38 is a crazy stat line. That's awesome. He had a touchdown that was dropped. He just missed Stephon Diggs on a deep route, which would have been an easy touchdown against Jalen Ramsey, who was in hell against Stephon Diggs. Like, I don't... it's really frustrating knowing that they were that close to just ripping this game wide open against this team. But that's been the case of this team pretty much all season.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was frustrated with Josh Allen yesterday, but I think maybe my perspective is the wrong word, but the way that I was kind of looking at the game, let's say, was a little different. What I saw, and Josh making boneheaded mistakes always drives me nuts. Like that interception he threw to Eli Apple, regardless of Gabe Davis, whether or not that was a misread by Allen or Davis is up for debate, but Allen just kind of dirting it to Eli Apple. Like, it just wasn't a great throw. Then the other interception, right? He missed the initial read to Dalton Kincaid. That's where he should have put the ball. He ends up bombing it deep. I didn't actually care about him bombing it deep at that point. It didn't matter to me. The mistake was the initial read. The bombing it deep ended up literally being an arm punt, which I have no issue with. And then the Christian Wilkins one was a freakish play where Christian Wilkins just beats Osiris Torrance and then just takes the ball. But that doesn't excuse Allen's mistakes throughout this game. But at the same time, watching this game, Josh was the offense. Like, the run game wasn't working very well. So the Bills essentially were saying, all right, Josh, you just have to do everything. You have to rush for the first down. You have to throw the ball well. And for the most part, he did it. I also truly do believe that if James Cook catches that ball going into halftime, Josh has 2 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions thrown, I think we would have had a very different kind of way we were thinking about him going into halftime. Bills down 14-7 going into halftime. Allen has 1 touchdown and 2 turnovers versus the game being tied, the Bills getting the ball, Josh having 2 touchdowns, 2 turnovers. So it's a kind of, again, a game of inches, a game of very slim margins. This is the way I look at it. The Bills have to win 4 more games if they want to win the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
Josh can single-handedly win the Bills 4 more games. He can also single-handedly lose them one of those games. Yeah. And that's kind of just the experience that we have to deal with a player like Josh Allen. And I'd always sign up for that because at least I know I have a chance where there's other teams like this. Let's be honest. The Steelers aren't going on a run and winning the Super Bowl. Could they beat the Bills? They could. I don't expect them to. They could beat the Bills, though. But you're not.
Oh, he got frozen. He is frozen in ice. I'm calling it right now. His wires got frozen and now he's frozen in time. I'll pick up where he left off. Yeah, I mean, so it's tough to really. Oh, okay. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna see what this looks like. Oh, this is great. Oh, I'm keeping this up the rest of the time. I don't care. This is just you frozen in time.
Oh, I can't even see me. I just see a black box.
Does anybody else see 2 Ubers? Does anyone else see 2 Ubers on the screen? Please confirm. We need to know. This is great. Oh, boy. All right. So I'll let you continue. Oh, that went away. All right. Darn. I was hoping that was gonna stay there. Maybe we are in like the weirdest timeline. Maybe we are in the Matrix. I'm really not sure at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where I got cut out, but yeah, I was
before you go on. 2 Ubers, no waiting. Sorry.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
It's a clone. Sorry. Him and DeMar Hamlin can.
Oh yeah, my buddy DeMar.
All right, go on. I'll mute myself.
No, yeah, just simply saying, like, I'll sign up for the Josh Allen experience any day of the week because at least I know I have a chance. Where there's other teams like the Steelers that really do not have a chance to win the Super Bowl. It might end the season in heartbreaking fashion if Josh has another 4 turnover game. But at the same time, I believe that Josh could easily have a 4 touchdown, 5 touchdown game. And that's just part of being a fan of the Bills and being a fan of Josh Allen. Sometimes it sucks, but more often than not, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's you just gotta live with this. This is your quarterback. You can't really. I mean, you could move on from him, but like, why would you? Like, I understand there's a reason to like. I just like, but no, like this is your guy. You gotta live with it. And actually, I forget who mentioned this. I really wish I could remember. Someone on Twitter kind of compared Josh Allen to the hyperdrive on the Millennium Falcon, where it's like, does this always work? Not really, but it does when it has to. And honestly, I would compare Josh Allen to the Millennium Falcon, period, where it's just like, this ship is not good. It's really beat up. It's seen a lot of things. It's done a lot of things. It's done a lot of impressive things, but sometimes the hyperdrive just doesn't work. The pilot of the ship is a little wonky and a little weird and a little too gunslingery, a little too swashbuckly. Just needs to like relax a little bit sometimes, you know. And he has a dog as a co-pilot, right? He literally has that dog with him, right? Like this is. But at the end of the day, what other ship are you taking with you if you have your choice? You're taking the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Because it's cool, it's fast, and at the end of the day, it always comes out on top. Like, that's just, this is what Josh Allen is. Like, you got to be able to take this and go with it. It's fun. It's maddening. It is what it is. Just gotta enjoy the Josh Allen experience when you have it.
Yeah, and there's a good, surprisingly of all people, it was Colin Cowherd has a good 2-minute kind of rant on Josh Allen that came out today, and he just talks about how like he's like, I don't even care about the turnovers. But when you watch this guy play, you're watching just freakish talent, freakish ability, and he does things that literally no other quarterback can do, and he's spot on. And the turnovers suck, but it makes it even more wild how good Josh is, that he can turn the ball over more than basically anybody else, but his talent is so powerful that he constantly overcomes those turnovers. And that's not to take away anything else from the rest of the team. And in this game, the true important part of this game was the defense. The defense won this game for the Bills, but there are plays that Josh had to make at the end of the game, and he made them. And he does that over and over. The 3rd and 13 run was so insane. There's not another quarter. Maybe Lamar Jackson could do that. And actually, probably Lamar could do that. It's Lamar and Josh. Yeah. Those are the only two that I would trust. 3rd and 13, you're going to run the ball. You're going to get a first. There's no other quarterbacks outside those two that's getting that first down with their legs.
That 3rd and 13 run is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, because he breaks away. He gets 5 or 6 yards. 7, maybe, I can't quite remember, but gets some yards, and then Jerome Baker's right there. Okay, so he breaks Jerome Baker's initial tackle. All right, Jerome Baker's a good player, a good tackler, but he's also kind of sort of fighting through an injury during this game. So like, okay, but he slows him down, and there's many Dolphins in front of him, and Christian Wilkins in that that play is sprinting, which, by the way, as much as I hate Christian Wilkins for being an instigator and a nasty little grub of a person intentionally, and that's his whole thing, right? He knows he can get under people's skins. He does it intentionally. I get it. If he were on my team, I'd love him to death, but he's not, so I hate him. But he is sprinting down the field because he's seen this movie before. He's seen this happen before. He knows if he doesn't make this play, something bad is going to happen. He needs to go and he needs to make this play. And he, being the athlete that he is, goes right after him. And he catches up to him because of Jerome Baker being able to slow him down. And not only does Wilkins not make the tackle, he slides off of him like he's made of Vaseline.
It's nuts.
And then he just dives forward for a first down. And Kader Kohu gives him a little slap on the helmet along the way.
And Wilkins is a 300-pound behemoth of a man. Like he
sliding
brings down
off of him.
Yeah, he brings down people like Derrick Henry all the time. So for him to dive at Josh Allen and Josh Allen just be like, nah, I'm good. It's insane ability. It's insane kind of gamesmanship, insane clutch. Like this game, you're talking about two different quarterbacks and neither played a perfect game, right? Tua had two turnovers and just the one touchdown. But when it mattered most, Josh did enough to get the Bills to win. When it mattered most, Tua just fell apart like he always does. And maybe we'll get into that a little more later, but that's why there's such a big question mark for Miami, where Josh is the guy. We know he is the guy. He's legit. He's elite. He's a top 3 quarterback, maybe top 2, maybe the best in the league this year. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, that was just a freakishly special play that I think us as Bills fans, we've just normalized it, right? We see it so often that for us, it's just, oh yeah, there's Josh being Josh. Where other people like the fans of the Commanders were probably watching that, like, why can't we have that? Like, why can't we have someone that can do that? Well, you can't, because there's only 1 or 2 guys in the NFL that can.
Right. Like, this is the thing that you kind of just have to appreciate with Josh Allen, that you get a little too used to when you have a quarterback like this, whether it's a Josh Allen or a Mahomes or a Lamar or a Brady or a Manning. Like, you get really used to seeing them play a lot, and you get used to seeing how they play a lot. And so them doing crazy things is just like, yeah, that's what he does. And it's just like, no, like, I mean, yes, that's what he does, but like, learn to understand that this is an incredibly special thing that not everyone can do. Like, you 3rd and 13 and picking it up the way that he did does not happen. There's not guys that can do that other than him. And like you said, Lamar. And Lamar would do it in a totally different way.
Completely different, yeah.
Like, it's just that Josh Allen is a one-of-one type of player. Like, there is nobody like Josh Allen. There's nobody that can do the things that he has done. It's just not possible. It doesn't exist. Yeah. I don't. It's absolutely crazy. And that play was a perfect encapsulation of, like, 3rd and 13. All right, they're not going to get this. They got backed up from a penalty. Like, of course, whatever. Punt the ball. I still felt confident in the defense pulling that out because of how they had played to that point. And then getting the first down was like, oh my God, they're actually going to win this freaking game. Maybe even just on this drive. And to a point, they kind of did, because they forced Miami to take those timeouts, which was so important on their last drive to kind of like limit their overall options. But then to, ultimately close out the game the way that they did was just phenomenal. And we're going to shout out Just the Tip of Canoe, giving us a nice 669 super chat. Thank you very much. He says, has Kincaid's route tree evolved, or is it something else? Because he's catching more balls further away than what he used to be, 4 or 5 yard checkdowns. So it's a great question. And I think the answer to that question is that, first of all, Josh is probably trusting him more because plays down the field to Kincaid have been there. He just hasn't really pulled the trigger as much on those, and now he is. And I think, part of that is also from, like, maybe even just Joe Brady. This is more just me shooting off. I don't really have any evidence for this one way or the other. But, I think that there's also just, like, Joe Brady maybe being involved in this, maybe just Dalton Kincaid finding more confidence. And, it's good to see, no matter what the actual, like, onus of this whole thing is. right? Like whatever's pushing this to this point, like Dalton Kincaid having the game that he did was great.
Yeah, and so I just while you were talking, I pulled up Next Gen Stats because they do a really good job with
Knew you were going
their
to.
charting trees. Yeah, and Kincaid, unfortunately, Next Gen Stats isn't working perfectly right now, which it
Oh, okay.
almost never does.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at his Week 17 game, which was last week,
Mm,
and a lot of his routes where he was targeted are downfield, like seam routes or verts or things along those lines, where just the way I'm remembering earlier in the season, he was that Cole Beasley guy that just sat in the intermediate and that's where he lived and that's where Josh
yeah.
targeted him. Now he seems to be running longer routes, deeper routes further down the field. And maybe that's what the Bills need out of him right now because they're winning in other ways with players like Khalil Shakir.
Feel like this was what he could do. It was extremely impressive anytime you turned on Dalton Kincaid tape at Utah. And that skill set has shown up greatly for this team, just as a rookie. And it's been kind of overshadowed because of Sam Laporta in Detroit just having an incredible year. Part of that's just the design of their offense and the fact that they don't really even have like great outside threats. You know, like they don't have a Stephon Diggs. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's another like slot guy, and Sam Laporta is another slot guy because he's a tight end. That's just where you function, right? And Jared Goff is totally willing to throw over the middle and get his guys killed. And, fortunately, this guy's like, a big Iowa tight end and Amon-Ra St. Brown are totally fine with taking a bunch of hits. So, it kind of works out for them. But I think that Laporta's stats get a little, I don't want to say inflated because that kind of makes it sound like they're fake. And I don't think that his production is fake at all. But he's getting more opportunities than most rookie tight ends would have. And, part of that is because he's very, very good. And he's proven that with the opportunities that he's been given, he's made the most of it. And that's what you should do when you're a great player. But that also doesn't mean that Kincaid has been disappointing or anything like that. Kincaid's been awesome. I mean, he's been, we're looking at truly the two best tight ends in Buffalo Bills history at this point on this team right now.
Yeah. I'm too young to know Metzelars. I'm probably not even saying his name correctly. That's the name that people,
for the record, was only okay. Like he wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He wasn't great, but he was fine. There were also a ton of players on that team that were way, way better than Pete Metzelaars. And this is also a franchise that has generally not had good tight ends. They just, historically speaking, they don't have good tight ends. So it may not mean much that Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are the two best tight ends in their history playing on the same team, but I also don't care. So
one last thing on like Laporta versus Kincaid, because I've seen some Bills fans yesterday when the Lions were playing like, oh, I wish we had Laporta, and so, like that just is a little bit wacky and wild to me. Dalton Kincaid put up a very great statistical season. Obviously, Sam Laporta put up a stronger statistical season, but just simply looking at two stats for me that I think are important, kind of analyzing these guys. Sam Laporta had not played 981 snaps, where Dalton Kincaid played 699. So you're talking about what, almost 300 different there? 300 more snaps for Laporta than Kincaid. And meanwhile, Kincaid was targeted 91 times to Laporta's 120. So you're kind of seeing a higher volume for a player like Sam Laporta as compared to Dalton Kincaid, which goes to your point earlier that the way that their offense is essentially set up makes Sam Laporta a very important target and a very important part of that offense, where Dalton Kincaid is kind of secondary to Stephon Diggs, and he's in a bunch of players that are secondary to Stephon Diggs. He's not just their wide receiver 2 or tight end, whatever you want to call him. Their second receiving option. He's a part of a greater whole in Buffalo than Laporta is in Detroit.
100%. Great Khalil Shakir game.
Yes.
He's really come on late, and that's been very exciting to have a 5th round pick turn into a legitimately reliable receiver, especially for me. because I did not think that was going to happen. And especially after his rookie year, I was like, I don't know how I feel about Khalil Shakir. And I honestly wasn't 100% sure he was going to make the roster this year. And this is why I'm glad I'm not in charge of an NFL franchise, because these are the sort of decisions that I would make because I'm a dummy. And he's been great. He's been really great. And it's been really great to see him turn it on. And he has some real legit like run after catch ability. And at times it kind of feels like he makes the same plays every week, right? Like something on one of those bubble screens, some sort of slant where they're trying to get him to get yards after the catch, a fade on the sidelines late in a game. And yeah, that's the Khalil Shakir experience in my mind. It's just like, he has these couple of plays that he hits on every week, and he's great. It's been really good. You find some plays, you make them work.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, my thought going into the season was there's a chance he doesn't make the roster. And even if he did, and I was happy he made the roster because I thought he was a very good depth piece, right? He can play outside, he can play inside. So someone gets hurt, you have your guy that you can kind of plug in there, and you have at least a professional level talent there. Well, I was wrong. His ceiling is really turning into wide receiver 2 for Buffalo. He has 611 yards this year. Like, that's
crazy.
And now he might literally be their wide receiver 2 going into the playoffs, depending on where Gabe Davis is with his injury. But yeah, his yards after catch has just been great too. He gets the ball in his hand, he's going to make a play. He's not the crazy like speedster that a player like Tyreek Hill is, but he has some really good top end speed. I think I remember his like RAS scores, his 40 was pretty high up there as in regards to having some really good wide receiver speed.
Yeah, him coming on has been such a big thing, and another plus for that class, right? Where
Great class.
That 2022 class is shaping up to be very, very good for Brandon Beane and this Buffalo Bills team, where you have James Cook, who's a Pro Bowler, their first Pro Bowl running back in a while, right? Did Singletary ever make one, or I can't remember.
I think Shady was the last one. I don't think Motor ever made it, unless he was an alt. He might have got in as an alternate.
I feel like Singletary may have been an alternate, but I couldn't have possibly told you when. But with Cook, Pro Bowl running back, fully earned it. You have Terrell Bernard, who's been a revelation at linebacker, just phenomenal. You have Khalil Shakir turning into a legitimate wide receiver for this team. And even though they missed so far right now on Kaiir Elam, and that's a tough pill that they had to swallow, they also made it a lot easier to swallow because they had Christian Benford, a 6th-round pick. Because this is what they do. They take these late-round guys that are just like, yeah, he has the kind of tools we're looking for. He kind of fits in our scheme. We'll take him. And then they're just like, oh, yeah, he's going to be CB2 for the rest of this season. And he's going to be good. His play down the stretch has been phenomenal. I mean, he's always been, like, solid, like, good enough. Like, okay, this is sort of like a Dane Jackson, like, Levi Wallace type of guy. Like, okay, like, I'm familiar with your game. And then the last, like, month or so has just been like, this dude is playing really well. Like, really legitimately good football. And that's really exciting to see. Especially when you have Rasul Douglas on the other side. And obviously Douglas had his own injury, which is something to monitor. But, yeah, Christian Benford playing as well as he has been very exciting and very encouraging for this team. Especially going into the playoffs. And then on the subject of the Rasul Douglas injury, there was Douglas said after the game, like, I probably could have tried to play through it, but Dane Jackson looked me in the eyes and he said, if you need me to go, I got you 100%. And that is, well, first of all, one of the coolest things I've ever heard. And well, he was right, because Dane Jackson played extremely well in that game. I mean, there were a couple of plays where he had to make a play, and he absolutely made a play. And that's been, Aaron Quinn of the Cover One flagship show. He always finds some low-level DB to become a stand for. And he did it with Levi Wallace. He's done it with Dane Jackson. And honestly, he's been right about both of them. It's really impressive what this team does with low-level corners or just low-level DBs. It just turns them into real, legitimate players that can actually do something on a football field.
Yeah, I mean, Dane Jackson, you were talking about the plays Dane Jackson made yesterday. He might have made the biggest play of the game when I think I don't know if it was Barrios or one of those little receivers that the Dolphins have was right at the first down marker, and Dane Jackson had to make an open field tackle. And when he first kind of grabbed on, I was like, oh, he's sliding off. That's a first down. And not he held on and
hung with him.
And Miami was. I think this is also a good time to talk about one more thing too. Mike McDaniel didn't go for the first down there on fourth.
He did not.
Meanwhile, Sean McDermott, who there's certain content creators out there that insist that he never goes for it on fourth down, which is wholly untrue.
Cowardly, doesn't believe in his players.
Went for it from his own 35 because he trusts Josh. Like I think you saw basically one coach playing not to lose and one coach playing to win. Sean McDermott just happened to be the one that was playing to win, where Mike McDaniel, this offensive genius, couldn't scheme up a play to get it a couple inches with A-Chain in the backfield or Alec Ingold leading the way or Tua even just getting a little bit low and maybe trying to push over the top of Liam Eichenberg. Like the fact that they didn't go for it, I think was kind of an indictment on their offense where Sean McDermott said, I trust you guys. You go get it.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised that he didn't go for it in that situation. I understand that you're on your own side of the field. I understand all that whole process, but you got to do something, man. You're the offense. We could talk about, I guess we'll talk about the defense. We've already started talking about the defense. So let's just go right into the defense. I mean, the Bills defense played out of their minds as they have played out of their minds for the last month of the season. They've been absolutely phenomenal ever since the bye week. Sean McDermott is coaching up that unit like nobody's business. It is incredible what he has done this season with that defense, with all the injuries that they've had, with all the different things that they've had to deal with. Just phenomenal coaching by Sean McDermott. And not only that, but to go against this offense in particular. And yes, you're missing Mostert. You're missing Jalen Waddle. I get all that. You still have A-Chan. You still have Tyreek Hill. And Cedric Wilson is not great, but he can do something for an NFL team. Braxton Berrios is not great, but he could do something for an NFL team. There were options out there, and the Bills shut them down the entire time, essentially. Allowing 14 points from this Miami Dolphins offense is astounding. Phenomenal, really. Just that they were able to consistently keep them out of position, especially given the fact that the Bills turned the ball over 3 times, right? They were not in position. And the first interception ended up getting brought out of the end zone, and the ball was put at the 3-yard line, right? So it's not like the defense was in a bad position really on any of those turnovers from a field position standpoint, which was good. That is a very important part of that.
Yeah.
But still, you're on the field more than you are expecting by a pretty significant margin, I would say, except for the fact that you're not, because you forced so many 3-and-outs in the second half alone. I mean, it was the second half for the Dolphins was punt, interception to end the game. That's insane. And this is for 2 straight seasons now. This is what Mike McDaniel's offense has done. They start off hot, impossible to stop, incredible team that will obliterate everyone in their path. And then they get down the stretch and it's just not quite the same. It's not quite the same. There was a great article by Bryce Rossler of Sports Info Solutions. If you haven't seen it, I think I retweeted it a couple days before the game. If you look for Bryce Rossler on Twitter, I'm sure you'll find what he wrote. He talked about how the Dolphins are one of the best 3-by-1 shotgun offenses in the NFL. They're also one of the worst 2-by-2 shotgun offenses in the NFL. And he really went into a great deep dive into why this is happening, why that's the case, why they're successful, why they're not successful, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very interesting. But like this offense as a whole just has struggled to end the season. It's really interesting to see because that hasn't really been the case for, these other Shanahan offshoot guys, right? Like in the case of somebody like Matt LaFleur, it's the total opposite, right? Like his offenses usually start kind of slow. Those Packers teams generally don't like get hot right out of the gate. They tend to take time to get down the stretch. And then he just wins a bunch of games in December and they're in the playoffs, which is essentially what happened this year with the Packers, where Jordan Love and that offense with all their young players are just like, nobody really knows what they're doing here. And like, I think they really made Jordan Love look worse than he actually was because they just weren't in position and the timing was off. And so some interceptions looked really bad and some plays, it just looked like a mess. And then at a certain point, it just all started to come together and suddenly this offense took off. And it's the reason why they're in the playoffs right now. And you look at this Dolphins team and they've just really struggled down the stretch these last 2 years. And again, injuries can be part of this. I get that, but injuries are part of the Bills season as well. And while the Bills had more time to adjust how they played defensively with these injuries in place, you still need it's a lot harder to do on defense than it is on offense, because at the end of the day, when you're playing defense, when you're coaching defense, rather specifically when you are coaching defense, your job is to hide your worst player, right?
Yep.
You need to find a way to make your worst player not be involved in whatever's going on as much as you can. Whereas on offense, it's all about getting the ball to your best players as much as you possibly can. So you still have your best player in Tyreek Hill. And it was also clear during the game that he was not 100%. Even going into that game, he was not 100%. That was very obvious. He still played well because he's still Tyreek Hill and a freak athlete and all that sort of stuff. But there were you also had Achane, who was really punishing them early on, and then they just didn't really do anything with him in the second half. And part of that is because the Bills adjusted and certainly keyed more on the run at that point, but then that should open things up in the passing game where guys like Berrios and Wilson can actually do what they need to do, or Hill. Like something is wrong. Something is wrong here. And it's not just Mostert and Waddle being out. It's part of it, but it's not the whole picture. Something is wrong with this offense when they get down the stretch. I don't know what it is. Something is wrong though, and they got to figure that out before 2024 starts.
Yeah, and you brought up I like how you describe like on defense when you have injuries, or regardless of having injuries, your entire job as a defensive coordinator is to hide your greatest weakness. That's why I think the Bills struggled so much post week 5 when the Jaguars game, because they lost players at every single level. So now you cannot just take one level and protect another one. You're trying to find ways like, I have to protect my DBs, I got to protect my linebackers, and I got to protect my defensive line. How do you do that? And it took the Bills a while, and it took Sean McDermott a while to readjust his scheme and say, okay, let's protect these guys and let's make these guys better. Rasul Douglas was a big part of that coming in, kind of solidified that DB room. So now you can slowly start protecting in, but then Tyrell Dodson starts playing well. And now Daquan Jones is back. So all of those holes now are starting to fill back in. At the same time, though, we talk about injuries in this game and the Dolphins not having Waddle and Mostert. Well, the Bills were also missing a handful of guys here too, right? No Matt Milano, obviously. No Trey White, obviously. And then by the end of the game, the Bills lose Rasul Douglas. So now Dane Jackson's in. So you're really down to your CB3, CB4. And then Tyrell Dodson, who's legitimately played good football
Yeah.
this year, which is a surprise to, I think, everyone.
Oh,
He
yeah.
goes down. So now, well, what are we going to do? And they put a 7th-round, second-year player in that's played 6 snaps on defense all year in Balin Spector. And you know what? Balin Spector played well. So the
Yeah.
Bills had all these injuries as well, that similar to the Dolphins, when you have those that defense going against that offense, the Bills players stepped up, and for the most part, the Dolphins depth pieces, which they don't have great depth on offense because they're so predicated on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That's the only 2 guys that matter in that offense besides, their running backs. But in the passing game, that's all that matters. Well, Tua only had Tyreek Hill yesterday. He wasn't willing to really distribute enough to a point where they could win that game, and the Bills players stepped up. So, yeah, I mean, the injuries are a big part of the story, but the injuries has been a part of the Bills story this entire season, and we see where the Bills are now and where the Dolphins are.
Yep. So I forgot to do something that I should have done at the top of the show because I got very excited. Folks, we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. If you have, like the rest of us, you should be done with your fantasy football seasons with your usual leagues. Maybe you won some money, maybe you didn't, but I'll tell you another way you can win money, and that is with Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em contest. You can win money predicting if Josh Allen will go over his yard totals, his touchdowns, completions, and more. If you think Allen to Diggs will blow up this week, you can put them both in your Pick'em. Predict up to 5 different over-unders correctly to win 20 times your original money. Somebody won like over $1 million last night with some sort of bet. I don't know what it was. I didn't really look that close to it. I don't know if it was with Underdog Fantasy too, but I'm going to pretend it is. So if you use the promo code COVER1, that's the number 1 when signing up, to make your first deposit, Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That is a free $100 in free play if you use the promo code COVER1. Sign up today and start winning today. We will do the one pass video at the end. Don't worry about that. I know everyone's looking forward to that. So, yeah, it's this defense, man, just phenomenal all around to be able to hold them the way that they did to finish the game 17 of 27 for 173 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Great. I mean, what more can you want? And that second interception, the game-ending interception, right? The throw looks worse than it should because the decision was worse.
Yeah.
Like, the throw was where it needed to be. The decision to throw to Chase Claypool when your season is on the line the way that it is and expecting a big play to come from Chase Claypool or for Chase Claypool to even be in a spot to like contest a catch is really rough because, as I mentioned, other Dolphins wide receivers like Berrios and Wilson, I completely forgot that Chase Claypool was on this team again. Like,
yeah,
I could not have like Chase Claypool is a new Kelvin Benjamin. Like, I've never felt so confident in a single comparison more than that in my life right now. It's just one of the most ridiculous things. Oh, come on, Roy, you're killing me here. He's right. Forgot about that. We got messed up. We got our frames out of place from the freeze frame. Yeah. Anyway, great for the audio listeners. I'm sure they're enjoying every second of that. But yeah, I think that like that whole decision of like, yeah, let's throw to Chase Claypool. It's just like, let's not and say we did, right? Like, I just don't understand that thought process. And Taylor Rapp made a great play. He saw where the ball was going to be. He knew where the ball was going to go to because he ended up in the spot and Chase Claypool didn't. And it was great coverage and just a great play on the ball. He took it to the ground. He held on to it, even through getting banged up. I don't know what his thing was. He seemed to be fine after the game, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But that was like one of the most clutch plays. And actually, as Bills Are Electric points out here, shout out to Brandon Bean for building so much quality depth into this roster. Shout out to Brandon Bean for building this roster because so many of the additions that he made in this offseason showed up today. Trent Sherfield caught one of the most ridiculous touchdowns you'll ever see in your freaking life, getting a ricochet that went so high into the air that when I was at the restaurant that I was eating at, saw that it went up. I reached into the basket of wings to get a wing. I looked back at the TV, and Trent Sherfield is catching a touchdown. That's how far that ball went into the air. The fact that he saw that, could see where it was going, and then say, I could catch that. I could catch that. And then saw where he was on the field in the end zone and said, my feet need to be here. Yeah, I can still catch that. And he reaches out and toe taps it. It's just crazy. I mean, I know it's one of the craziest plays you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And then Deontay Hardy with the 96-yard punt return that we talked about earlier. Unbelievable. The special teams have not made a freaking play all year. They have been an active detriment to this team for too long this year. It's been a problem this year. And for Deontay Hardy to just rip that off at that time might be one of the most unexpected plays to happen this season, other than that Trent Sherfield touchdown. Yep. You have that. You have Hardy. You have Sherfield. You've got Taylor Rapp ends the game by getting the interception, and he almost ended the game on the play before by tipping the ball up to Benford, who almost came down with his second interception. And Benford, a 6th-round pick. Dalton Kincaid, a 1st-round pick this year. Terrell Bernard's been great. Taron Johnson is a baller. And Oliver was great again, who got signed to a big deal that everyone was like, I'm not so sure about that. And I'm like, yeah, more of that, please. That's more about me. I just wanted to brag about how much I love Ed Oliver. But it's just Brandon Beane's ability to build this roster was starting to come into question after the 2022 season. And I understood some of the questions. I didn't necessarily feel quite so strongly about it as some Bills fans did. And that feeling has now been vindicated because we all see it now. I mean, we all see just where this roster is at. Just a phenomenal job by Brandon Beane to get all of these players, not the least of which was Rasul Douglas, just picking him up at the trade deadline. Just masterful work by Brandon Beane in 2023.
Yeah, and a lot of credits owed to Brandon Beane, but I also think a lot of credits owed to Sean McDermott for finding ways to utilize all these people, right?
Yes.
When Taylor Rapp was brought to the Bills, and then Jordan Poyer was brought back. Now suddenly the Bills have 3 safeties, and the question was, are the Bills really going to go dime? Because we know they're not taking Taron Johnson off the field, so will they go dime? Will they put Taylor Rapp on the field? Mm-hmm. They don't run dime basically ever in the Sean McDermott, tenure here. And suddenly the Bills are like, we can put Jordan Poyer in the box with Terrell Bernard and play Taylor Rapp deep. And it kind of makes our defense faster and better at defending the pass. So we can use that in certain situations. And lo and behold, last night it worked for the Bills. Like Taylor Rapp makes a massive play. Sean McDermott had to use the tools that Brandon Beane gave him, but Brandon Beane gave him a great number of tools and players that were important at every single level too. Again, you go back to Leonard Floyd, who almost becomes the forgotten man and has 10.5 sacks this year for Buffalo. And the Bills bringing back Tyrell Dodson on a $2 million guaranteed contract that, again, I think just about everyone in Bills Mafia was like, what the hell are you doing paying him $2 million to come back, which is pennies at the end of the day. And that one was part of bad luck with Matt Milano getting hurt, but then plugging Dodson in and have him playing as well as he did. It kind of vindicates everything that Brandon Beane's done and all those questions that fans had, whether it be free agency, whether it be the draft, like to a point. Yeah, you're going to miss on a couple of guys from time to time, but Brandon Beane, his hit rate is so high that it's really hard to question him, especially when you compare him to his contemporaries that are paying for free agents that are essentially doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's crazy how much those new additions have contributed this year. RJ said Puna Ford with the block on the punter on the touchdown return, which is just about the funniest image I saw all night. Was ginormous Puna Ford lightly blocking this punter on, and nobody was near Hardy by the time he got to the 50, which is hilarious to me. It felt like there were like 10-9 players trying to cover for the Dolphins on that play, as opposed to the usual 11. Just craziness, absolutely crazy. Yeah, and you look at special teams again. Deontay Hardy's return was great. Tyler Bass did his job. Sam Martin did his job. Can't ask for anything more at this point out of the special teams unit.
And we'll add to Tyler Bass and the Bills, and I would bet you Sean McDermott, went to Smiley and said, "We're kicking the ball out of the back of the end zone every time. We're not kicking it short." And Tyler Bass drilled it out of the back of the end zone instead of letting Braxton Berrios return it. The second the game started and I saw Bass kick the ball out of the end zone, I'm like, there we go. Let's go. Rest of the way, that's what we do every single time. Don't give him a chance to return that ball.
I wholeheartedly agree, honestly. So the Bills are now facing the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs in Buffalo. The Steelers somehow snake their way into the playoffs. They do it with Mason Rudolph at quarterback, and now you don't have TJ Watt for your playoff game. And that's tough for them. But it also is a reminder that this team is not to be underestimated at any point, because they do have some talent, even on offense. They've got George Pickens, who can break off big plays. You've got Deontay Johnson, who's a really great route runner. Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris have both been good down the stretch. So there is a way for the Steelers to win, and it's largely by the Bills beating themselves, which is something that they've done many times this season. Too many times this season, one might say. But, it is certainly likely for the Bills to win this game, right? If they lose this game, it'll be a massive disappointment, especially given all the three theatrics it took to get to this point. To then lose to the 7-seeded awful Steelers would be pretty rough. And I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and you and I were talking before the show. I've been on the Steelers bandwagon maybe more than 90% of Steelers fans. That being said, the Bills are a significantly more talented team. Like, this game shouldn't be close. This is a game the Bills should run away with, but we've seen the Bills play close games against bad teams. And the Steelers aren't a bad team. They're just not a good team. There's a very big differentiation there. I can fathom a world where the Bills lose this game. I just can't see it happening. Like, I can't imagine that Josh Allen lets them lose. I can't imagine that Sean McDermott can't scheme up a game plan to make Mason Rudolph look like Mason Rudolph. So, yeah, this is a game the Bills should win, but they can't beat themselves, and that means they can't throw it Minka Fitzpatrick. They can't let Cameron Hayward eat them up. They can't let George Pickens make multiple freakish catches, or Deontay Johnson break a big one, or Najee Harris pound the rock down the field over and over again. So the Bills got to win this game, essentially. And if the Bills can win this game, then suddenly we're getting much, much closer to a possible Super Bowl run, which where we were just a month ago, being able to say that and say that confidently, yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it really is just such a weird season, such an incredible season. For it to end against the Steelers seems unlikely and also wrong. Like, it feels incorrect if that actually happens, and I don't think it actually will. You can't lose to Mason Rudolph in the playoffs.
No.
What are the Bills going to do? Give up 14 points? Maybe if things really go wrong, I think they give up 21 points to this Steelers offense if things go really wrong. But that's it. So if you score 24 points, at least, that's more than enough, I think, in my opinion. And this has a chance to be a close game early on because I think the Steelers will do everything they can, but I just can't see a real scenario in which the Steelers team wins this game. It might happen. It could happen. Anything can happen. I've seen a 7-9 Seahawks team beat the Super Bowl champion Saints in the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen weird things happen in the NFL. I've seen a team with a 0.1% a chance to get the 2 seed end up with the 2 seed. I just saw that happen. So weird things can happen, but this feels pretty unlikely.
Yeah, and bad weather can be an equalizer in situations like this.
Sure.
And there's supposedly going to be bad weather for this game. Whether that is precipitation or just wind remains to be seen. But I do like having Josh Allen in these situations just because he's built to literally compete in weather. I don't think Mason Rudolph's that guy. I don't think Mason Rudolph's that guy in sunny Miami either. So this is a game Buffalo's got to. They just have to win this game. Like there's no excuses this week at all.
I wholeheartedly agree. Is there anything else you have to say before we go off here?
Just one quick one. Teron Johnson, absolute stud. He was incredible yesterday against the run and the pass. He better get some All-Pro votes. I don't know if he'll get the All-Pro award, but he better get some votes for the new slot corner position.
If he is not first team All-Pro, I'm gonna just light everything on fire. I'll start a class action lawsuit against the PFWA. So man, I'm looking forward to that day. Do we want to do true or rubbish? I don't even know. No, we can do true or rubbish. Let's do true or rubbish. All right.
Okay.
Let's, actually, before we do that, let's have a nice conversation / ad read with our friends Greg and Aaron.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
Thank you, Greg and Aaron. Always the immaculate professionals that they are, delivering the same exact ad read every single time. Folks, it is time for
the truth or rubbish. Let's go.
All right. So, Uber, last night, you did exactly what I expected you to do, which was pull out the CVS receipt of receipts to dunk on every single person that either doubted that the Bills would make the playoffs or that thought the Dolphins were going to be the super team to win the Super Bowl. Shoot, I gotta think. Okay, well, what's a good way of phrasing this? Okay, so true or rubbish, how the over under on tweets that you had saved throughout the year was over a dozen.
Oh, you think it was true? True. I think a dozen?
This was true. God. All after all, can believe it. It was true.
Oh, if I showed you my bookmark folder, my book with all my folders set up of all the troll, a dozen? Try 200 maybe? Yeah, I didn't do all of them. I was feeling kind of kind, so I only did a handful of them. But I got some more ammunition left if I ever need to pull it out.
Clearly, see,
I don't forget.
I don't really try to mix it up with jabronis online. You know, like I'll call out some media people, the journos, as it were, because they're professionals and they're paid to be called out. But you know, dunking on the feeble and weak-minded, that's not really for me. But that's why you're here. we are the ultimate balance, as it should be. It's really I also greatly enjoyed retweeting many of your talks last night. It was good. It was perfect. Just especially the way that game went. This is really, really fun. Okay. So true or rubbish, the Eagles make the NFC divisional round. So for those who are unaware, the Eagles are facing the Bucks in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay won their division, technically. They were really bad their last 2 weeks after a huge win against Jacksonville. So true or rubbish, the Eagles beat the Bucks and go to the divisional round.
True. It's true.
This was true. All after all. Can believe it. It was true.
They are such a better team on paper that they should be able to overcome their bad play to beat a team. The Buccaneers just beat the Panthers 9-0. That's how they won the division.
Yeah.
I know that the Eagles just got essentially boat raced by the Giants. That being said, if you have Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, granted, there's injuries everywhere. Jalen Hurts had a weird finger. AJ Brown hurt his knee, so I don't know what's all going on there. But that defense has talent. Like, if they don't, I was joking around on Twitter about firing Nick Sirianni. If they don't win this game, that joke might become a little more realistic.
I think it would be extremely, I don't want to say extremely, but it'd be pretty unlikely for them to fire Sirianni, even if they lose this game. It's messy in Philadelphia, that's for sure. Especially the way that they've handled their defense and who is and isn't calling plays for that defense. It's become a mess. And I do think that their offense is probably better than it seems. Jalen Hurts definitely had a slump. Part of that was the injury that he had to deal with. He really hasn't been playing horribly during this stretch of losses, honestly. Actually, I think that he's had some pretty good games that have just been killed by the occasional turnover and really bad defense. And I mean, like when they made the switch to Matt Patricia to be the defensive play caller, he had his first game against Seattle, which they end up giving up in the last moments to Drew Lock. And then, okay, you go against the Cardinals, your former defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, and you not only lose, you give up 38 points in the process to a Cardinals team that, like, has had some good moments on offense, but really? Like, come on. Surprisingly, Matt Patricia has not been the savior for that defense. What a shock. Yeah. Maybe he can help their offense. He was an offensive coordinator, right? So, it's I really have no idea who's going to win that game. I say that as somebody who is also a fan of the Eagles. I don't feel confident in the Eagles. They seem very lifeless and listless. They look like they don't really have the idea of what's supposed to happen at this point. Like, they just sort of look dazed and confused. It's rough. It's not been fun watching the Eagles play football the last couple of weeks, especially given the way that they started the year. Yeah, so I don't know who's going to win that game. The Eagles are obviously more talented than the Bucks, and they should be able to win that game. And I think they should be able to win that game pretty comfortably, but I don't think that's going to happen. Actually, I say that makes it sound like I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they're winning comfortably. That's for sure. I think it's probably a 50-50 shot at this point.
Ooh,
and that's not fun. It's not fun to think about. This Eagles team might be one and done, and at this point they kind of deserve it. Let's see. So I'm gonna very quickly look something up. Wow.
I've got one for you.
Go for it. Do it.
Okay. True or rubbish? The Bills make the AFC Championship game.
It's a great question. An important question. One that should be asked. And one that I am going to say
This was true all after all. Can believe it. It was true.
Okay, so if the scenario plays out that we talked about earlier, where Bills beat the Steelers, Browns beat the Texans, and then you have the Chiefs beat the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs come to Buffalo, and I think the Chiefs are very beatable. Very beatable, I would say. So that would be a game that I feel pretty confident in, especially given the way that the Chiefs have played this year. Like, I feel fairly confident in the fact that the Bills could beat the Chiefs. And I think beat the Chiefs pretty handily, if we're being honest. So then you go to the AFC Championship, and like I said earlier, Browns could beat the Ravens. I'm not saying it'll happen. The Browns could beat the Ravens. If they don't, the Bills go to the AFC Championship against the Ravens in Baltimore. I don't know if they'd win that game. I think they'd give Baltimore their best shot, but I think Baltimore's too good of a team to really beat. Cleveland, on the other hand, if they win, that means Cleveland comes to Buffalo for the AFC Championship. And I'm sorry, there's no way that the Cleveland Browns are walking out of that stadium with an AFC Championship if that's the case. So
I'm same exact mindset as you. You beat the Steelers, you host the Chiefs, beat the Chiefs, and then you just hope like hell the Browns beat the Ravens. That's your path. And if the Bills can get to the Super Bowl going through the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the Browns to go to the Super Bowl and play probably the 49ers.
Probably the Niners.
I mean, yeah, obviously I'll sign up for that, but I do think that's the Bills' best path. But it starts just with you got to beat the Steelers for any of this to possibly come to fruition.
I agree. Okay, so penultimate statement. So there's one more after this. True or rubbish? Speaking of the 49ers, the Niners started Sam Darnold in yesterday's game against the Rams. The Rams started Carson Wentz, who led that team to a victory against the 49ers. So true or rubbish, Carson Wentz or Sam Darnold is a starting quarterback for a team in week 1 of 2024.
Oh, that's rubbish. It's rubbish.
It was rubbish all after all. It was all rubbish.
Yeah, there's no way. Carson Wentz. If I had to pick between the two to start a game for my team, I'm taking Carson Wentz every single day of the week. And I don't think Carson Wentz is very good. I just think Sam Darnold's bad at football. He might look good for the 49ers to a point, but everybody looks good for the 49ers. Just ask Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't see a world where one of those is starting next year because I think there's many more backups in the NFL that are better than those two people.
I don't disagree with that. Also, NFL teams can be really dumb. And I think somebody is going to look at that Sam Darnold performance and be like, I can save him. Like it's a teenage girl reading a romance novel. I can fix him. I can fix him. I can do it. And it's just not gonna work. You know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But couldn't you see some team doing this? Like if the Patriots just like have no idea what to do with their franchise and they're like, well, you know, we don't really want to keep Mac Jones, but we're going to keep him and Bailey. And what if we bring in someone else? Let's bring in Sam Darnold, you know, and he like wins a quarterback competition between those three. Like, I'm just saying.
I mean, I'd love it to happen.
I would, oh my God, a quarterback competition between Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones, and Sam Darnold in New England. Sign me up for that misery. Pats fans deserve it like nobody else. But I get this weird feeling that game is going to be looked at by a lot of pro scouts and executives, and somebody's going to think, I could do something with this. We don't really have many good options, but I can do something with this. And they're wrong. Like they're going to be very, very wrong. All right. Final statement. The Buffalo Bills will shoot. Wait, no, I don't even know what to say anymore. Usually this is the Buffalo Bills will make the playoffs, and we can't do that anymore. Crap. And we already talked about AFC Championship. Yeah, all right, I got nothing. My bad. That was a real bad way to
They'll win this weekend. They'll win this weekend. Let's just say that.
All right, let's go with that. Okay, Buffalo Bills beat the Pittsburgh Steelers this week.
That's true.
This
Absolutely.
was true.
All right,
After all,
thanks.
can believe it. It was true.
That was terrible. All right. Thank you all for watching that show and enduring that limp end. We will be back next week, hopefully after a Bills win in the wild card round against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very much looking forward to this weekend. Very glad to have each and every one of you along on this journey with us. It's been quite the season for the Bills. It's been quite a season for us here on the Roundup. Obviously, as everyone knew, right? Like Kyle left the show to, he got a new job. Good for him. He couldn't do the show anymore. I struggled through 2 shows before being asked if Uber could be my co-host, and I could not have said yes faster, partially because I needed just someone here to talk to so that I could take a breath every once in a while, but also because Uber does a great job, and he's done a great job ever since he's joined Cover One, and he's been very, very great to have. Thank you for being on this show, Uber, and for joining me on this crazy ride of a 2023 season, and hopefully this postseason will continue to go just as entertainingly, if not anything else. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy I got to join this show. I like talking about football any single chance I get to talk about football, and being able to do it every single week with a active audience. That's really awesome too. Following the comments as we're kind of talking really helps us kind of come up with new topics on the fly. And also when we bring in these comments, it just helps kind of move along the show even better. So yeah, I love it. I appreciate you allowing me to join you, and then appreciate everybody that takes the time to listen and watch.
Absolutely. All right. Carl Toman coming in. Here's one for you. True or rubbish, the Bills will win the Super Bowl before they move out of Highmark Stadium. I'm going to be crazy. I'm riding the high. I'm saying true.
This was true. After all, can believe it. It was true.
You're not going to... I know you're saying true.
I'm saying true. 100% saying true.
If I'm positive about something Bills related, you're positive about something Bills related. Yeah. I know that. All right. That's going to be it for us. Thank you all for joining us. If you like the show, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the like button on your way out. It really helps us with the algorithm and all that wonderful stuff. You can share this with your friends, enemies, lovers, and neighbors. You can support us directly, again, through OnePass. It's the most direct way of supporting us here at Cover One. All of that goes right to us and everything that we do. $60 a year for the best Bills content you will find on the internet or anywhere, really. I mean, short of being in that locker room yourself, this is the best Bills coverage you can possibly get. We put a lot of work into what we do here. We really enjoy being in this community and helping to just create better football discourse as a whole and discussions about stuff, especially with anything Bills related. So you also you get all that. You get access to the Slack channel with other people that are big Bills fans, just like you and me. You get Greg Thompson's salary cap breakdown, which is great. You get all sorts of stuff, exclusive content. You get some swag. I mean, come on, this is the start your new year with one pass. Let's do that. I'll make that the new tagline. Start the new year with one pass. If you're liking this show, we appreciate that. If you want to see more content like this, guess what? There's a show coming on in about 20 minutes called the Air Raid Hour with Stephen Tilt. They will take you through yesterday's game. You've got Under Review tomorrow night. You've got guys coverage as well. You've got the Film Room. You've got If the Walls Could Talk. You've got a new draft show. Go subscribe to the Cover One draft channel. There's a whole separate channel. We've got 2 new guys on there, John and Daniel. They do a great job. I listened to their first show last week. They're great, really, really smart dudes. They're going to be great to talk with and discuss things with during the off season. You've got Buffalo Late Night on Thursdays with Thomas DeLaus. There's stuff. There's stuff happening pretty much every day with us here at Cover One. All sorts of written pieces by guys like Ryan, by you, Uber, by me, and Greg Vorse and Chris Seth. I mean, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
So just always keep an eye on what we're doing here. We've got Bills content coming from you for you all the time. So Uber, where can the people find you?
Find me on Twitter at UberHansen. I will be dropping a matchup preview on Friday for the Bills-Steelers games. That's the only written content I'm putting out over the next couple of weeks. And actually on Wednesday, I will be putting a post out on Reddit detailing basically all of the Cuber data. Cuber's a quarterback statistic I created. So that'll get posted on Reddit, and I'll also tweet that out as well.
You can find me at DFAUXY. You can check out my recap of yesterday's division-clinching win over the Dolphins. You can also find recaps after any game and go back through that archive. You'll see the kind of emotional turmoil I was in through most of the season writing these recaps. I might do that. I might go through. I might see what I wrote throughout this season. It'll be interesting. So you can do that. You'll catch a recap next week and hopefully the week after, maybe even the week after that. So thank you all for joining. We are very happy to do this. Glad to do this every week. We will see you all next week.